Hi, and welcome to this episode of Step Change Conversations. Today we're joined by Anna Trbovich, who is Vice Chair of the Energy Web Foundation and co-founder of Grid Singularity, an awarded energy technology innovator which enables peer-to-peer energy marketplaces, and is also Professor of Entrepreneurship. Thank you for joining us today, Anna.
Thank you for the invitation.
So a lot of the work that you've done is in the field of the idea of decentralizing energy and developing green and smart technologies to support the energy grid. And this was kind of a main drive for the creation of both the Energy Web Foundation and Grid Singularity. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your work in this field and what these organizations do a little.
Sure. So while the main promise is, like you said, supporting the resilience of the grid, the ultimate goal is to improve system efficiency and have an environmental impact whereby individual citizens have been empowered to be more active market participants and investors in renewables, whereby they would have economic benefits, but also social and environmental benefits, which can be multiplied if they join together as energy communities, which is a concept now gaining a lot of traction in Europe. And then ultimately, by joining with other communities and engaging in intercommunity trading, thereby changing the market approach to one that is not top down but bottom up, and overall increasing the local consumption of local generation and increasing local generation that is mainly from or almost exclusively from renewables.
No, that's really interesting that you talk a little bit about the bottom-up approach rather than the top-down, because we hear quite a lot about how changes within the energy sector are coming on from up high. But yeah, just talking about more this sort of grassroots approach to making changes with the energy sector is really interesting. Uh, but as is in the news quite a lot now, we're kind of facing a bit of an energy crisis with price increases and, as you say, the drive for more sustainable energy sources. I'm just wondering what are the main challenges that are facing the energy sector at the moment in these regards, and a little bit more about how you include like different stakeholders, except kind of apart from the ones kind of up, and talk about this bottom up kind of approach of your work a little.
Right. So at the higher level, the geopolitical um, crisis that has evolved with the situation in Ukraine has highlighted the dependence on oil sources and highlighted the need to diversify and increase investment in renewables, as well as other tools that increase the efficiency of the use of the resources that we have. And many countries have used the opportunity, and that is the silver lining, to accelerate the energy transition. All of a sudden, it became possible for a government to mandate solar on public buildings and to do other initiatives that have a significant impact on the sector. At the same time, there are multiple new technologies that are underexploited. They are supported in the EU through different Horizon projects. There are pilot sites, demonstration campaigns, but a very slow uptake of these new technologies that could facilitate and leverage the investment, the increased investment in renewables. So this is where we are. The push that has come as a result of geopolitical events is a very positive one, but there is still a bureaucratic standstill as to how quickly we are able to use the findings, the tools that we have developed to improve the sector. And surprisingly, energy is one of the least innovative sectors of the economy, looking back historically, in great part because it has been a very monopolistic uh, type of industry, as well as highly regulated for the reasons of security of supply, and that is very important to citizens and governments. And decoupling has been very helpful. And we are all doing more. When I say we, people across the globe, but there is still a feeling that it's not enough and that we could and should do more because the evidence of climate change is now staring us almost daily in different parts of the globe.
No, that's really interesting that you talk about sort of uh, the monopolization a little bit of the energy sector and kind of it feels a little bit that we've reached a slight impasse a little bit where kind of competitiveness and innovation is being kind of drawn back by, as you say, these monopolies. And as you say, we are facing a current energy and climate crisis. I'm just wondering, this is a little bit off-piste a little bit, this question, but is is there an impasse? Is there something, do we need to change some fundamental kind of our usage rates and that sort of thing to moving forward to strive for this sustainability? Or do you think that new technologies can help us live our lives kind of as we are do right now? And there is sort of a technology deficit that will allow us just to sort of catch up to our needs, I suppose.
Um, my focus has always been on economic development, and interestingly, one of the factors that is most important for economic development is public administration.
Hmm.
And even in this case, it is the administrative hurdles that are preventing an accelerated energy transition. The Step Change project, which is looking at how tenants view, for example, shared solar panels in Germany, is looking not only at their approaches to technology, but also implications for regulation, because it is not fear of solar panels that is preventing more citizens in Germany to install panels in buildings. It is the severe complexity and cost that is associated with installing a solar panel on a building in Germany. And if the hurdles, the administrative hurdles related to this were removed, there would be a much higher engagement of citizens. And therefore, the policy aspect is even more important than the other aspects. And when you share a resource, you're also creating social bonds for the building and for your community. And there has been significant evidence that these social bonds create a culture that leads to a higher productivity and a more sustainable and effective development of any region or country. So it is all connected, and it starts from very banal administrative hurdles related to how you acquire and install a panel in your building.
So it sounds like by including more citizens and these community-based projects, it kind of causes kind of this, I want to say grassroots, but also kind of this kind of ground up kind of approach that more tenants know of their options. They know that there are opportunities to perhaps adopt these perhaps solar panels on your roof or other kind of methods of energy production. And through that kind of social, not discourse perhaps, but maybe I'll use the word discourse, they can perhaps drive kind of their local government to maybe do more, which would drive higher government, which might drive overall policy change, I suppose.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct. At least bring attention to it. And because sometimes small things that you change can have a much bigger impact elsewhere. And this is one such example. Um, and then you can move up from there, which is that we as a company are focusing on peer-to-peer trading, which means that you're not just sharing a resource in a building, you're also creating a little energy market in a building to optimize the resources that you have, because they could also differ per apartment. You could also have that building trade with the building next door. We have also shown in different studies that even if you have a community that is socially better off and therefore able to invest in more renewable resources, especially batteries, which is a storage increase your revenue, your savings. If such community trades with another community that is um, not wealthy and or at least not as wealthy and does not have these resources, even the other community is benefiting from better prices and a greener supply than if they were not able to trade with each other. And this is the technology that we have built that facilitates this. And there are now a number of demonstrations of these kind of trials around Europe, but a very slow change in not in understanding, but in actually acting to change the regulation to enable this type of trading. So in some parts of Europe, you can now have a community trading at a single preset price, which is already the next step, but you still don't have actual peer-to-peer bottom-up trading that's based on the conditions in that particular market slot. And then, of course, if you want to be even more ambitious, which we are, you are then using that local market to help the flexibility of your local grid. The company that is managing the grid can send a price signal, and this is called a dynamic tariff, and say, you really need to sell to me now because I need this energy to avoid the blackout. And it's cheaper and more environmental that I buy it from this group than that I get it from hundreds and hundreds kilometers away from a wind
Hmm.
resource. So all of these connections become available where a distributed resource is not an added complexity for a grid manager, but a source of flexibility for when the grid needs it.
I suppose this adds a little bit to the communal sense, I suppose, just sort of it's not just benefiting the rich neighborhoods per se who can afford to put solar panels perhaps on their roofs, but by this decentralization, you can share, you might avoid this sort of, again, maybe this power ghettoization where just like some areas seem to have plenty of kind of easy and cheap power, whereas others are still more reliant on the national grid, perhaps.
Yes, so many communities in Europe are investing in renewables because they want to be self-sufficient. So it's more to do with independence and feeling that you can rely on your own community than the savings and the revenue that you're generating from this investment in, be they panels or batteries or electric vehicles or whatever resource you have locally. So that is one of the drivers in Europe, but it is a driver in wealthier parts of Europe.
Mhm.
Whereas the type of social impact and benefits of reduced energy bills is something that is more of an objective in most parts of Europe, and understandably so. The fact that it has an environmental benefit is a plus, but the first objective is to save on your monthly bills,
Mhm.
especially for the less well-off communities.
I suppose that's an easy kind of way into engaging with people and getting people interested to sort of looking at the bottom line of their energy bills, and if that can go down, then that's an easy way to engage and just an easy way to get people interested, I suppose.
Yes, yes, and we do need to involve the citizens, absolutely, when also in piloting new technologies. We need to get their feedback as to what is the level of ease of use that they feel comfortable with. Do they have any preferences that need to be embedded in the design of the application? The new technology allows a much wider set of choices than is available now. So we are in part using blockchain technology, which would enable citizens to have the type of choices that are unimaginable now, such as really deciding who they want to trade with, whether that's a local sports club or a charity of choice or just a neighbor they like. And you can enter these type of preferences, a set of preferences, and settle them more, automate this settlement in a way that is not available with the more traditional programming tools.
So you talk a little bit about your use of blockchain a little bit, and I'm just wondering for those who are a little bit unsure about what they probably know about it through cryptocurrencies and that sort of thing, but maybe not know how this could be used with this sort of technology, I suppose. So I was just wondering if you could perhaps give a small explanation of how you're using blockchain in this instance, perhaps.
Sure. So you are correct in that most people know it as a currency, as a means of payment.
Hmm.
And the value there is in speed, assurance that when you send from A to B, that this will happen, and so forth. In energy, the use is in automating, essentially clearance and settlement, having multiple transactions, and those transactions can represent different user preferences. Think of it as a complex equation that you solve in a more efficient way with this type of computing technology. And the reason why it's particularly applicable in energy is that the system is distributed, and we have these distributed resources that need to be managed in a distributed way. And that's why it's a very logical use case for the energy sector. And in some ways, it improves the way business is done. There are system efficiencies. And in others, it allows for creation of new business models like peer-to-peer trading that were not available before or not as effectively implemented without this technology, because you can support peer-to-peer trading with traditional technology, but it would be prone to manipulation in a way that it would not be when using blockchain.
So it's sort of like not an open book, but a log that everyone can see where the transactions or where these exchanges are coming from. And it
The
just kind of,
transparency, yes,
the,
transparency is a big part of it, and automation through this complex way of solving, or should I say, efficient way of solving complex problems is even more important for the efficiency of operation.
no, that's really interesting. And uh, another just sort of follow up on that. Are the big energy firms pushing back at all? Obviously, this sort of decentralization is stepping on their toes a little bit, or have they kind of accepted that and embraced kind of that this is the way of the future, perhaps?
It's there.
Hmm.
It's not to be ignored. There is a different level, obviously, of penetration of distributed resources in different regions, but the trend is to increase the share. And as to the attitude, it really depends on how the market is regulated. obviously, in markets where there has been a decoupling of roles, where there is more competition, there is more interest to invest in the new business models. But there are also energy companies in markets that are still to change, that are forward-looking, and that do have innovation projects in this area. So Energy Web is an entrepreneurial foundation that has been supported by energy companies from Japan to Europe and Australia and the US. So, and South America, I mean, really covering different parts of the globe. And it is the large companies that are, some of the pioneers, together with very small startups that are working with them. And it's a very interesting integration of cutting edge startups and very large entities that have a desire to venture into different business areas. For some, there is clear recognition that it's also a way to survive energy transition and transform the way they operate. There is that awareness that the top-down way is to be changed.
No, that sounds fantastic. So it just seems taking on kind of the citizen science approach really by engaging with all stakeholders, big, small, and those within the community to drive this change, I suppose.
Yes, and citizens and NGOs are a big part of this. So in Europe, we have associations of energy communities. We have obviously green initiatives, but increasingly NGOs that engage in social inclusion, that are looking at the role of energy as essentially one of the economic rights of citizens that needs to be secured. And so there is definitely a momentum of these different initiatives, and the geopolitical events have also helped catalyze government action. It is all very positive. Is it enough, for people who are involved in innovation around climate and citizen empowerment? Never, right? We
Mm.
always want more, advocate for more, and it is the case that in this area that we're specializing in, regulation has to catch up with the development. So the technology is there, and there is a number of testing sites, but we need to jointly figure out how to move from these to a mainstream actual market activity that is available to citizens across Europe and other parts of the world.
Mm. And I suppose that's sort of why projects sort of like Step Change or other initiatives are quite important for putting in this early groundwork to provide that kind of background information to drive this policy change, I suppose.
Absolutely. We need to involve them. We need to make sure the design accounts for all of their needs and wants. But I think we should also give them credit that this is not a hurdle that cannot be overcome. It can be, and absolutely projects like Step Change support this leap.
My last question is just if you had any final thoughts about the scope of citizen science and where the energy sector might go in the future, I suppose. Are you overall excited? I imagine you are, but yeah, just what are your final thoughts?
I have just been wondering, as a result of involvement also in this project, how citizen science could be endorsed also by the industry outside of the typical research innovation projects projects that are supported by the government. So perhaps thinking about how, to think about some ad hoc partnerships that could be established when we're piloting new applications. So we usually at some point go into the field to test. And if you're not part of a larger project as a business, you don't really have an opportunity to involve social science researchers
Mhm.
to help design that, or you rarely do. So it's just more of a thought than, or a question for all of us. How do we involve social science researchers more in applying new solutions um, outside of traditional projects? I think that would be interesting to think about. How does one do that? How do you make it easy for businesses to resort to people specializing in this field when they have different um, field tests for new applications or new versions of their applications?
No, that sounds very exciting. And yeah, let's see if we can maybe get more government and more businesses involved with these energy transitions. I just want to say thank you very much for your time today, Anna. It's been a very fascinating conversation. And yeah, good luck in all your future work.
Thank you and good luck with the project.
Thank you.